Liberate IT is an Oracle NetSuite solution provider that has been servicing Australian and New Zealand companies since 2011.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for coming along to the Liberate IT Partner webinar series. And today we are very fortunate to have with us the wonderful team from RF Smart. Now, before I go any further, can I just have a show of hands just to see if you are able to firstly see me and also if you can see my screen? It would be great if you could just raise your hand. Fantastic. Okay, wonderful. We're all good to go. Now, just a couple of very sort of brief housekeeping slides from me. So I am Gabrielle. I'm the Liberate IT Relationship Manager. And with us today, we've got Stephen Lewis, and we've also got Philip from RF Smart, but the guys will introduce themselves to you in a moment as well. So just a couple of housekeeping details. We're going to have questions probably towards the end of the presentation, but if Stephen and Philip want to, they will ask questions throughout. But if you do have a question that occurs to you, can you please just type it into the question box? Now that will come up, it's a confidential question box, and we'll either answer that question if it's general for the entire audience, or myself or probably one of the RF Smart team will get in touch later with you. Now, we're also going to record this presentation today, so you'll be able to have a copy of that, copy of the slides, and a copy of the presentation later. You'll also receive an email which will have Stephen and Philip's contact details, so you can go directly to them as well. So Stephen, without further ado, are you okay if I hand over the presentation to you?
Actually, it'll be Philip that's starting things off, so
okay.
If you could hand presentation rights to the middle, Stephen.
The middle Stephen. Right. Okay. Let's see if I can the middle Stephen. Okay. Fantastic. Right. Just one moment, guys, and hopefully this will work. Okay, just let me know. You should see that now.
I think yes, now, Philip, you should have control. Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic.
So Philip will be kicking things off, and then I'll be taking over later on.
Okay. Okay, that's wonderful. Well, I will mute myself and leave you guys to it.
Awesome, thank you so much. Just wanted to confirm that everyone can see my screen, which should be the beautiful face of Stephen Lewis and myself.
I think that's the wrong view, mate. You might have to swap them around.
Okay. Got it. Is it?
That's still the presenter. Right? I can see the presenter view.
Got it. Got it.
Much better. Perfect.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. So we'll get things started. So Gabriel, thank you so much for having us on today. So as Gabriel pointed out, we want to make this interactive. So we'll kick things off for a quick intro, and then we'll get to some detail around the solution. But if you have any questions at any point, feel free to ask them in the chat, and we'll do our best to address them. All right. So again, we'll start things off. A few words about us as well as RF Smart, and then we'll get Stephen to show the product in a bit more detail. So just some quick introduction. So my name is Philip Lempa, based here in Sydney. I am the account director for the region. So think of me as the first point of contact for you for anything RF Smart related. I have Stephen Lewis with me as well. Stephen is the operations manager for the region and also the product expert, so to speak. Stephen, I'll let you introduce yourself briefly as well.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. So, as Philip mentioned, I've been working with RF Smart for about the last 5 years, and in the inventory control sort of WMS type industry for over 20 now. So, yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you guys shortly. Thanks, Philip.
Awesome, thank you. So, maybe we can start things off with just a few words about us as RF Smart. So, as a company, we've actually been around since 1982. So we're quite an established and stable company. We're headquartered in Jacksonville in the US, coming to the 200 employees mark, with global offices in London as well as Melbourne, Australia, and of course covering New Zealand out of Australia. So at this stage, we have over 1,300 customers in 33 countries, and 800 plus of these customers are our NetSuite customers. And one thing to mention here that's very important is that with RF Smart, we only work with a handful of ERPs that we choose to strategically align ourselves with and write solutions specifically for these ERPs. So what that means is that, for instance, in terms of NetSuite, we have a solution that is specifically written for and in NetSuite. So our NetSuite solution is actually 100% native suite app, so 100% written on the NetSuite platform. So with NetSuite, we are approaching 100 customers in the ANZ region, and apart from myself and Stephen on sort of the sales side, we have both support and delivery resources in ANZ as well. So I think it's worth also mentioning what RF Smart brings to companies really as business value. So these are some typical business value drivers that you can see here for RF Smart. So typically, why companies choose RF Smart, typically these fall into three main buckets. So reduction of costs around keeping and handling inventory. Also, very important for a lot of customers is the improvement of customer experience through reducing the number of errors in orders, and also the ability to do more with the same amount of warehouse workers, and of course the visibility into this type of workforce in the first place, because oftentimes what we see with customers is that in terms of their their workers handling inventory, they have no visibility into that and no idea what's happening. All right, and maybe it's also worth mentioning here who can use RF Smart. So if you are a NetSuite customer, you handle inventory, and your operation, your warehouse is bigger than a garage, most likely RF Smart can help you. All right, so a few important points here just to stress. As mentioned before, we are a 100% native suite app, so built in NetSuite. So why that should matter to you and why that's important? Well, that means that we are a NetSuite managed bundle, so there is no need for any expensive and potentially risky integrations to be built during the implementation stage. Also, the implementation, because of that, is quite straightforward, and the product introduced is implemented in a matter of weeks as opposed to months. Right. So I thought this is quite an important slide to cover in the introduction as well. So we've been around as a NetSuite product. So RFSmart has been working with NetSuite since really 2012. The product was first released in 2013. This is a bit of a timeline that shows how the functionality changed over the last 6 years or so. So you'll see quite a bit of functionality added, and this is both in terms of new modules being developed and new functionality in certain existing modules. So I suppose the headline here is that we continue to innovate, and you don't have to increase your spending with RFSmart to take advantage of that innovation. And actually, speaking of innovation, so for 2019, we've allocated over $5.2 million in research and development, and more than half of that at RFSmart is going to the NetSuite solution, being our most strategic one in terms of the cloud solutions. So again, I can spend a whole day talking about RFSmart and how great we are, but don't take just my word for it. I like you to talk to our partners like Liberate I.T, talk to our customers. So this is actually one of our recent quotes from a New Zealand company, Vertex. So as you can see, they were able to achieve quite outstanding results with RFSmart. So again, increasing the on-time picks and increasing the amount of orders they are completing with the same amount of workforce, right? So again, if you can know what your workforce is up to, then you can create the efficiencies there. Okay, but again, that's just one customer. Being a native suite app, we have some quite stellar reviews that you can see on suiteup.com. So if you go there during the after the webinar, you'll be able to read some good customer reviews, and you have to be a customer to leave a review there. So as much as I would like to ask my neighbor to leave us some better reviews, unfortunately that's not possible. Right. So any questions at this point around RFSmart for NetSuite? All right, doesn't seem so. If that's the case, maybe it's a good opportunity to pass it on to you, Stephen.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Philip. I'll take control here in just one moment, and we'll get started on my side of the presentation. But firstly, yeah, thanks everyone for your attention today. As I take over here, and what I'm going to talk about is functionality that's been added in the last 12 months, including functionality that is included in the solution, as well as functionality that required the addition of add-on modules. So I'm going to cover that first, and then I'm going to show some just a quick demonstration, just so everybody has a view of how RFSmart works and what it is. And then once I cover the demonstration, we'll have a final discussion and answer any questions that have come through. So I'm showing my screen now. You should be able to see NetSuite screen on the left-hand side and an RFSmart screen on the right-hand side. If you could confirm that, Philip, for me, that would be good.
Yes, that's the case.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Philip. Okay, so in terms of functionality that has been recently added, the bin transfer all that you can see on this screen has been added, and that bin transfer all allows you to take all the products in a particular bin and move them to another bin. Particularly useful if you're doing a warehouse reorganization of any type, or if you're shifting one specific item, you can use bin transfer all to move everything sitting in that bin from one bin to another, rather than having to do it one item at a time. Now, in a similar vein, but quite different in terms of functionality, is bin replenishment multiple, which you can see on my menu here. So bin replenishment for those that aren't familiar, bin replenishment is a function that allows you to take stock from a bulk area and refill a pick face. So for example, if you had an item configured in NetSuite with a pick face bin and multiple bulk storage bins, you may want the ability to be able to refill that pick face. So I'm just going to open up one of the items here. There we go. So if I open up one of these in NetSuite and just show you a couple of RF Smart settings. So there's a couple of parts of this demo are going to be a little bit technical, but then I'm going to get into the standard demonstration as well. But for those people that already have RF Smart, I did want to show them the capabilities that have been added. So if we look at the item bin enhancement section here, you can see for this item for the bin E25, I've specified a minimum, a maximum, and a multiple. What that means is that whenever this bin gets below 10, it'll refill it up to 100 in units of 10. So that multiple is normally your carton quantity or some other sort of quantity that it makes sense to move the product in, because you don't want to be breaking down boxes to try and refill a pick face. So when that gets below 10, it's actually going to go looking for other bins in the system that contain that product, and it's going to generate a replenishment request. So when that is run in NetSuite, you can imagine that may generate one request, or it may generate 50 requests or 100 replenishment requests. And what will happen when those replenishment requests are generated, if I may draw your attention to the right-hand side of the screen where I'm showing my device running RF Smart, this bin replenishment number will start to count up, indicating that there are new replenishments that need to be done. And the same number can also be displayed next to bin replenishment multiple. What bin replenishment multiple allows you to do is do multiple pickups and put downs. So if you visualize a warehouse having a forklift with multiple rows and rows of storage, and then rows and rows of pick faces, and there's multiple requests to do replenishments, you may want the ability to go through and pick up all of the items out of the bulk area one at a time onto the forklift, and then take the forklift to the pick face and then deposit all those items there. And this is what this functionality allows you to do. Can be very useful for some customers, and so we added the bin replenishment multiple to the system. Speaking of the RF Smart screen that you can see, I also want to show you a couple of pictures of the device that I'm using today, just in case that's not clear. So this is an example of a Honeywell device where you can see on the top of the device there is an integrated scanner, and then the next picture is just of the just of the device itself from the front on side. So you can see it's not a it doesn't have a keyboard. There are different models with keyboards, but this is an example of one that's more like a ruggedized phone with an integrated scanner that you saw at the top of the screen there, and then on the back here, it's got just a simple handle. A simple strap. They can also be fitted with a trigger. There are different device options with keyboards, etc. But I just wanted to sort of draw your attention to the type of hardware that we use to execute things in RF Smart. So having picked up all my items and put them all down in the pick face, the pick faces have now been replenished and picking can continue. So this bin replenishment multiple and bin transfer all were both added to the existing bundles of our existing customers. So these weren't things that needed to be paid for by anybody. They didn't require any additional investment. They were simply available and ready to use. Things that are coming that we don't have full detail on yet, but that are under development. There's two things that have recently been added to the list of products that we're developing. So we have an application called order planning. Those of you who are existing customers may be aware of our pick planner module. Our pick planner module is one of our more sophisticated modules that allows people to do wave picking, zone picking, and I can give good examples of those. So zone picking might be where you have equipment that requires something special to pick it up. So we have a white goods supplier as a customer, ENS Trading in Australia, and they need to use a side clamp forklift to pick up ovens, fridges, these types of dishwashers, these types of appliances need specialized equipment to transport. So they sell those. They also sell handles. They sell drawer handles. They sell little individual pieces of equipment that are going to be used in re-outfitting a kitchen, even spare knobs for appliances, things like that. So they would go through taps, that kind of thing. So it's a different person that picks those. So that's an example of zone picking, where one person would go into one zone and pick all of those items, and then someone would go into the other zone and pick all of the appliances, and then they would be brought together in a dispatch area. That's something that previously required our pick planner features. And then we're looking at adding something called order planning, which is a simplified version of pick planner that allows you to generate tasks without needing as much setup and complexity as pick planner. Secondarily, what's also under development is something called mobile work center reporting. So work center reporting, if we just look it up on here, actually I'll look it up in the help. So work center reporting essentially allows you to track labor when completing a work order. So this is that from our RF Smart help. You can see here, it's showing me the screen where I have to select my work center, I have to select my operation, and then with orders, I can hit start next to orders. And what that does is starts the clock to track labor. It can also be paused and resumed, and then when completed, the labor is recorded against the work order in NetSuite. You can see by this that it's not designed to be run on a handheld device. It actually runs in a main sort of NetSuite screen. So we're doing a mobile version of that can be run on a device that would have a screen like the one you can see on the right-hand side. So this would allow time tracking against work orders for people that want to know who's doing what in each particular stage of the work order. Just to be clear, this does require that you have whip and routing turned on in NetSuite to track different operations against a work order. What I've also pulled the help up for us to show that the help has undergone a very significant upgrade. So previously the help was a list of functions and some brief setup information. We've now added video content, including webinars, which would allow you to watch a webinar on how to set something up or how to do something. But the great thing about these support webinars is not only are they there, but they actually have links to different parts of the webinar. So you can click a button and it's just going to take you to one specific piece of the webinar, which is great. If I mean, I'm sure everybody in the who's watching this or listening to this has been watching a YouTube video and going, geez, I wish I could just skip to the part I care about and not watch all the rest of this. So that's what these links are for, and they're great for that. So you can click on that specific link and it takes you to that specific part of the video, which I think is a great feature. The other thing that we've added here is we've considerably enhanced our list of information around setup. So setup used to just be a couple of things. Now we've got a lot of different things around here that talk about, if I set up inventory status, what do I need to do, for example? And support of inventory status is another example of something that we added to the product in reference to a NetSuite change. So NetSuite added inventory status, RS Smart added our own configuration that further enhances inventory status and allows you to control what status things get created by default. So is it default receiving, default RMA status, is it default counting status and completion status? So you can set different statuses to these values. I would just on inventory status, the only thing I would say about that is you do need to be very careful about the impact of inventory status on your entire NetSuite environment, because once you turn it on, you can't turn it off. So playing around with that either in a release preview account or a sandbox account is definitely recommended. And then lastly, just on the help, all of the transactions in the entire RF Smart suite. So let's look at bin replenishment multiple as an example. So if we open that up, every transaction is fully documented from start to finish. A high-level description of what it does, setup considerations, including setup of RF Smart and setup of NetSuite, preference information that impacts the function, and then an overview of what it does and how it does it. And then every screen, what it does, how they work, what the expected input is, and then we just go through it one screen at a time. You can see there's a large amount of detail being shown, and it's going through and describing exactly how the function works. So we think this is really important to have this available for our customers so that when they're using a function, they can easily look up how it works and they can use this documentation for training. You'll see over here, there's also a download button that allows you to take a copy of these articles and distribute them to people if they don't have access to NetSuite, because it is required to be in NetSuite to look at the RF Smart help. So yeah, that's enough on that, but I did want to sort of emphasize that that has been enhanced considerably. So any existing customer that's seen our old help would know that this new help is much more broad and gives a lot more capability to the solution. One other specific piece that's been added to this solution since the last webinar is barcode parsing. That has now been implemented in full. And what that means is it gives us the ability to scan a single barcode and input multiple pieces of information. So the best example of that is if you have a lot or a serialized product, you can print a 1D or 2D barcode for that product, and that barcode would contain both the item number and the lot number, or the item number and the serial number. And then when you scan that in RF Smart, we can control where those values go. So we can say, okay, the item goes in the item field, the lot number goes in the lot number field. Other examples of available fields are things like expiry dates, quantities. These can all be mapped from the barcode into input fields, speeding up the process of scanning the item and lot into a single scan, or even item lot expiry into a single scan, as opposed to having to scan those individually or print them individually. So this was a capability that we built custom for a few customers, and then we realized it should be based in the product. So now it's simple and can be done and set up by any existing RF Smart customer. So once again, another feature that we added to the base bundle of RF Smart. Okay, so we're at the half-hour point now, so we're about halfway through, and the next thing I was going to do is do a brief overall demonstration of the solution and then allow some time for questions. Just wanted to pause there, Gabrielle, before I get into the actual demonstration, and ask if there were any questions at this point, or if I should continue on with the demonstration.
Okay, Stephen, I haven't seen that there's any questions at the moment, but if anyone does have anything that they would like to ask Stephen at this point in time, we'll just sort of pause for a little while just to give you time to type those in. Otherwise, if something obviously does occur to you as Stephen continues, please do type your question in. You can guarantee that everyone else sitting here on this presentation is probably wanting to ask the same question as well. But I think probably as usual, Stephen, you guys have been so thorough that you're probably answering everyone's questions as you go along. So I think probably continue. Yeah, I can't sort of see anything coming through at this point. So
okay, great. Thanks for the information, Gabrielle. I'll continue on. So I'm about to do a purchase order receipt. I should also mention that this same process is the same for receiving an RMA back from a customer, and also for receiving a transfer order. So we have the 3 different applications available, but the process is essentially the same, other than the order type that you're identifying. So as I pull up the RF Smart application here, you can see it's showing my default location, which is Auckland. So my demonstration environment is configured of course, in New Zealand. And then I can hit the load purchase orders button to see a list of purchase orders available in my location. You can see I can scroll through that and move the screen around. I can tap the purchase order column, and it will be sorted, forwards and backwards by purchase order. I can tap the vendor, and it will be sorted forwards and backwards by vendor. So all the things you would expect from a web-based application. I can also enter the purchase order manually off the supplier paperwork, or even scan the purchase order if I happen to have a barcode for the purchase order, which is what I'm going to do today. So once I scan that purchase order, it pulls up all the purchase order details and shows me the items that are on the purchase order. In this case, I'm working with some food-based products today, so some jerky that's come across from the US, which is why it's in ounce sizes rather than grams. And what I can do at this stage is scan one of these products to bring it into the system. So I'll do that as one example. So if I scan a barcode for the product, what it does, pulls up the product details from NetSuite, shows them on the screen, and then also asks me to confirm my lot number, because this is a lot controlled product. So if I scan my lot number here to confirm that, I could also enter my lot number manually if it wasn't on a barcode anywhere. And then what I do is confirm the quantity that I want to receive of that item. So you can see it's showing me the order quantity up here, how much has been received, and the unit of measure that we're expecting that receipt to come in. Other important things to draw your attention to here is the print labels button. So I can actually print labels for this product at this point, and I could print the aforementioned 2D barcode label that contain both the item and the lot number, and then scan that subsequently. I can also use this calculator button here to do some very simple basic calculations. So let's say I hit calc and I go, okay, well, this comes in boxes of 10 and I've got 20 of those. I can just calculate that out nice and quickly, and then just hit the next button there. So you can see that product's been marked as received, and it turns green and shifts to the end of the list. And this is a common concept in RF Smart, right? So as you do a process, you'll see there's red items, there's green items, and there's yellow items for things that have been partially done. So I just scanned that barcode again, and it's saying you can't receive any more because you've already fully received it. If I scan a different item, it's going to pull up the item details here, and then I scan my lot number to confirm my lot number, and then I can enter my quantity. So in this case, I'm actually just going to do a manual entry of quantity, and it's going to pull it up and turn that one green as well. Just to also re-emphasize, as Philip said, everything is being done in real time in NetSuite. So if I scan a bin instead of an item, it's going to try and validate it as an item, and when that fails, it's going to tell me it's an invalid item. It also makes an audio tone that I'm not sure would come through over the webinar, but yeah, it makes an audio tone telling me I've done something wrong. So if I scan an item that's completely invalid, I get that invalid item message. If I scan an item that's valid but not on this purchase order, I get item not on purchase order. So everything is happening as I do it in NetSuite in real time. So as I scan in my products and my lot numbers, these lots are existing lots. If they were new lots and I had expiry dates turned on, it would come up and say that I need to enter an expiry for that brand new lot number. Once this process completes, I can hit submit to create the item receipt, which I'm going to do now. And what that does is goes out to NetSuite and creates the item receipt against that purchase order, and also creates the stock in the receiving bin. Okay, I just noticed a question saying that the screen wasn't moving. So I just wanted to double check. Gabrielle, was the screen moving when I was doing that purchase order receipt, or were you not actually watching at that time?
No, I am still seeing it. I've got the screen picks per employee.
On the right hand side, the purchase order didn't move.
No, I don't think it actually did. Do you want to just try sort of moving something again, because there shouldn't be, because that's right now that refreshed. So
okay, my apologies if it stopped earlier. I'll just do a quick purchase order receipt again. So if I scan the product, it pulls up the lot details for that product. As I discussed before, I can scan my lot number to verify my lot number. I can either enter my quantity manually, or I can use the calculator button. In this case, I'm going to enter the quantity manually. And then if I scan another item on this order, so if I scan the same item again, then I get my error telling me that item has been fully received. If I scan a completely different barcode, then I get an invalid item message. So that was as I mentioned earlier. And then if I continue through scanning the other products on the order, then it's going to pull up the product details. I can scan the lot number to verify the lot. And once again, if I wanted to, I could actually do a short receive. So I can say I'm only going to receive 150. It's asking me for another lot number. So if I wanted to receive multiple lots, I could do that, and multiple quantities to build up to the full order quantity. That's also possible. If I go back, you're going to see one item is green, indicating fully receipted. One item is yellow, indicating partially receipted, and one item is red, indicating that it has not been received at all. So I'm going to do the red item, or the unreceived item, and I'm going to scan my lot number once again and enter 75. And if you could imagine as you're unloading the truck, if you were finding some of this and then you continued on, and as you were unloading the truck, you got to the last piece, and there we can see that the PJ1002 still has some further quantity. So as I'm unloading, I unloaded all the PJ1003, and now I find some more PJ1002. So I can scan that, I can verify my lot number and enter the remaining quantity. And once that's done, I can hit submit, and then that purchase order will be receipted. So if I pull up that purchase order, so PO2035, and I've gone to the left-hand side of the screen, I've pulled up my NetSuite screen now. I'm going to have a look at that purchase order that I just received. Just give me a moment to pull that up in NetSuite. And over here in the purchase order section, we can see the pieces. So if I pull up the item receipt itself, this is the document that gets created in NetSuite when the receipt is completed. And if we take a look over here, the reason why I wanted to pull this up is I wanted to show you the RF Smart transaction record. So this record indicates that Stephen C. Lewis, which is me, using purchase order receiving, created this item receipt in 125 seconds. So full detail is being recorded of what is happening in the actual transaction by RF Smart. And then because you've got this information, you can use this information to continue to monitor activity, to understand metrics like the picks per employee that you can see over here. You can use NetSuite's global search and dashboarding functionality to generate, pick trend graphing, to generate sales order trend graphing, etc. You can also have things like, if I go to the RF Smart overview, you can also have information like scorecards, transaction count by user graphs, etc. So because we're recording that information into a NetSuite record, a custom NetSuite record, it can then be used in saved searches. So rather than go through our full demonstration, just in the interest of time, I was also going to take a quick look at sales order picking. So we've looked at the receiving part. Next after receiving would be put away, and then the stock is in the system, and then you can move it around, you can count it, you could pick it to a work order, do assembly builds or work order completions, etc. But just in the interest of time today, I'd like to talk about sales order picking. So sales order picking here is the application I would use to pick an individual sales order. We also have bulk and multiple order picking. The difference with bulk and multiple order picking is that you're picking multiple orders at a time, and with bulk, all the order quantities are added together. And with multiple, you're actually picking individual sales orders, but you can also do them all in a single pass through the warehouse. So I'm going to actually open up the multiple order pick and talk through a scenario. So one of our customers in Australia called USA Foods, who imports and sells US groceries, they would line up multiple. So they actually print pick slips. They don't do electronic assignment, which we also support. They print pick slips. They actually call them a packing slip, so they can drop them in the box at the end of the process and continue with the order. So they have a packing slip, if you like, with a sales order barcode at the bottom. So they place the packing slip on the pick trolley, they put a box on top of it, and they leave the order number barcode sticking out the bottom. And then they scan the next one, and they put the box on top of it. Then they put the next one on the trolley, they scan that. They put the next one on the trolley, they scan it. So they basically go through a process of loading up multiple orders onto a trolley. And then when they've scanned them all in, they can hit begin. So you'll see here there are multiple lines for the same product. So these are actually split by sales order. And let me just step through a bit more of the picking process. So if I scan the product, I scan the lot number to identify the lot, and then I confirm the bin that I'm picking from. The top bin is the bin that's been allocated to pick from. The other bins are alternate bins that it can be picked from. And now it's going to ask me for a quantity. So I'm picking 2 packs of this particular type of jerky. The difference with a multi-order pick is it now says, okay, scan the barcode for the sales order to confirm that you're placing it into that box. So this is where it comes into the fact that we have the box for the sales order and we have the barcode on the bottom of the page sticking out that we can scan and say, yes, I put it into the box for order 10074. And then it says, okay, you need to pick some more of that item. So confirm the lot that you're picking, confirm the bin you're picking it out of, and pick another 3. So I pick an additional 3 of that same lot and I place it in the box for the next sales order. And thus those 2 lines are turned green and dropped to the end of the list. The other lines are showing as red, as unpicked, and these lines are always sorted into a bin sequence. So it's starting in one part of the warehouse and the operator can go through the warehouse and pick these 2 orders in a single pass rather than having to pick them one at a time. So that's the order picking process with RF Smart. If you don't want to pick multiple orders at a time, I'm just going to cancel out of here. So before I do actually continue to cancel, so I can continue to pick if I hit cancel by accident, I just hit continue. I can actually pause this if I want to pause this and then be able to resume it. Or in my case, I'm actually going to cancel the pick. So what that does is deletes the pick state so that RF Smart knows this pick has been cancelled, and NetSuite does as well. So now if I go back into sales order picking options, if I just go into the standard sales order pick, what we can see here is this does allow the allocation of orders to pickers. I'll just close down some of these NetSuite screens. So this is an example here of a, excuse me, of a dashboard in NetSuite where it's editable. So I can actually go to some of these orders and I can say, for example, I want to assign this particular pick to Stephen Lewis. So I can say, there he is. I've assigned that pick to him or to somebody else. So I could assign it to Katie, I could assign it to Sherry. So this would enable you to do order assignment. And then on the right, I'm switching back to the RF Smart screen on the right. When I hit show list, what that's going to do is show me a list of all sales orders allocated to me because I had the pick to me button showing, and I've got quite a few allocated to me, but you can see that 74 and 75 are now showing at the bottom of this list. I only just added myself to 74, but it is showing in the list saying, hey, that's one that's ready to pick. So that's one way of getting into the orders. You can also say, look, I don't want to see just stuff assigned to me. I want to see everything, or I want to see orders that aren't assigned to anybody. So you could have some people that pick everything assigned to them, or other people that do the unassigned orders. So if you've got people doing unassigned orders and people doing orders assigned to them, that means you can assign by exception. So an example of that would be most people just pick unassigned orders during the day, but your best picker, that could be Gabrielle, for example, she would pick only orders assigned to her. So you would assign all the high priority orders to Gabrielle and leave everybody else to pick up the orders out of the general pool. The ship by filter also enables you to say, hey, I want to filter by the orders for a particular carrier. Now, this doesn't have to be a carrier. I've seen some pretty innovative use of the ship via field in NetSuite. So some customers that I work with use it to indicate which of their local trucks they want the order to go on, for example. So you could be picking the orders for one of your local delivery trucks using that ship via section there. So bearing in mind that we have about 15 minutes left, and I think some questions have come in, I'm going to pause the demonstration there, and I'd like to ask Gabrielle if we've had questions come in.
Yeah, so there's just a question at the moment, Stephen. So do your users need to have access to both RF Smart and NetSuite?
So the short answer to that question is no, they do not. So we have a feature which allows us to attach multiple RF Smart users to a single NetSuite user. So you can have one RF Smart user, and it's a NetSuite feature called security tokens. I can put a little bit more color around that. So the user does need to be in NetSuite. So the RF Smart user does need to be configured in NetSuite, but they can be not marked as active, which means they don't consume a NetSuite license.
Okay, fantastic. Now I did have a question that was actually sent through to me from Therese. Unfortunately, she had to leave the presentation. But the question that she's asked is, how long does it take to set up RF Smart, and there was sort of she's actually asked two scenarios. One, if you've got sort of bins already set up, and everything is really sort of one box tick away, to the point where you're just setting up a brand new business, brand new warehouse.
Okay, no, that's two excellent questions. So I'll answer the first one first. So in the case of the first question, anywhere from a couple of weeks to 2 to 6 weeks, basically, if the system is already set up. We had one customer that specifically wanted RF Smart for stock taking in a short. They had a very short sort of ramp up time because they realized they were about to need the system to do some stock takes, and so what they did was they got the RF Smart system set up and installed, did the training for the single transaction and started using it straight away. So they were up and going in just a bit less than a week. And other examples of people would be, sort of 4 to 6 weeks because the system was already running. The only caveat I would put on that is it also does depend how much time as a business owner you have available. Like, are you available to work your way through this? Do you have enough time to be able to set up pieces in NetSuite and train your people? Typically, those are going to be the areas that take up more time than the actual RF Smart setup itself. So that would be if you had an existing system ready to go, an existing setup ready to go. The other scenario that was mentioned would be a business that has nothing set up in NetSuite, and then things will take a little longer. So the shortest I've seen that done in is about 8 weeks, and it could take longer if it's going to take you longer to get inventory and everything set up in NetSuite.
Perfect. And I think we also have quite a few customers who are already using RF Smart. So if anybody does need to get in contact with somebody who's already using the system, then please just do get in touch with either Stephen or myself, and we can put you in touch with a reference site as well. There was one question that I was asked actually on site the other day, Stephen. Now, how easy is it? Well, what would you recommend for the actual scanning devices, and can you use iPhones?
Okay, so we typically would recommend the use of a ruggedized device because it will last longer in a warehouse scenario. And also we recommend these ruggedized devices for sort of 3 key reasons. So the first reason is because that they can obviously withstand some damage. The second reason is that they have an integrated scanner, so it's very easy to scan barcodes, both 1D and 2D barcodes, with an integrated scanner. And depending on the device you select, they'll also have the option of a long range scanner. So if you want people to be able to sit on a forklift and scan from a much longer distance, then that long range scanner could become important. The third and probably the most important reason why we recommend a dedicated ruggedized device is because they have very large batteries, and so they're going to get through a shift easily. Most of them are going to get through a shift very easily. Most start off with a rating of 12 hours of battery life, and that slowly scales down across the device's life. There's a couple of devices that Honeywell sells that are rated to still provide a minimum of an 8-hour battery life 2 years into the devices and the battery's life cycle. The other great thing about them is that the batteries are replaceable. So if someone forgets to put a device on charge, then you can just grab a battery, swap it out, and continue working.
And that being said, though, thank you, Stephen. I think there are certain contexts where we could definitely work with such devices. So, for instance, we have some customers in the retail space who, in certain locations, they would use RF Smart on an iPad, where it doesn't the risk of dropping the device is quite low, and they can charge it in relatively low volume usage. So definitely. We can support that in the right context, but in most situations, as Stephen mentioned, we recommend a more sort of purpose-built ruggedized scanning device.
Thanks, Philip. That's actually a really important point. So, and we do have a couple of customers that do use phones because it's actually a medical company with a very large number of branch offices. They wanted to be able to scan products to receive, but all of these branch offices were very small. So they were only getting they were only getting a very small number of activities every day. As Philip mentioned, I think it was like, one product receipt, maybe at one count a week, and that's about it. One order coming in a day, one count a week. So they did actually use a phone with a sled. So that the sled, so they could do scanning. There are multiple options, but yeah, Philip's quite correct. In general, we would recommend the ruggedized devices.
Perfect, because I guess they are used sort of out in the warehouses, aren't they? Which is a tough environment. I had one last question, Stephen, which was asked of me just recently. Obviously, NetSuite are going through another upgrade within the next couple of months, and the question was asked: Do you schedule your upgrades for the same period as NetSuite, or obviously, you might not have all that much control over that, but how are there sort of major upgrades per year? Is there extra charge for that sort of thing? How does that work?
Another great question. Thank you, Gabrielle. So RS Smart does at least 4 major releases a year. Usually we do 6, and we do also do dot releases, so releases for specific fixes. We don't deploy all of our fixes automatically to a customer without consulting with that customer, is the first thing that I would point out. So unlike NetSuite, you have control over when an RF Smart update would be rolled out. The second point I would make is that we do have access to release previews early as a Platinum Oracle partner, and also as a trusted Suite App partner of NetSuite. We get access to release previews early, and we are always testing to see whether any part of that new NetSuite release is directly impacting RS Smart. Typically, it is not. Typically, though, what we would need to do is update our bundle to take advantage of new features which NetSuite is adding, which we tend to do over time. If a customer has an urgent need for that feature, however, and they contact us, we would add the bundle straight away. So I think when it comes to release timing, we don't just push our updates out to our customers. We speak with our customers if we think they need it. If a customer contacts us and says, I can't use inventory status, for example, we would say, okay, well, you need a bundle update, and we would discuss the timing of that bundle update. And because we have help desk staff 24/7 by 365, we can schedule that bundle update at a time that's convenient for our customer. So I think it was yesterday, our UK office pushed a bundle update at 2 o'clock in the morning for one of our Australian customers.
That is wonderful. So that does really sound like it's quite a personalized service as well, which I know this particular user will be very happy to hear that they've fallen foul of a couple of the NetSuite releases. So that's great. So I don't have anything else that I can recall from recent site visits, Stephen and Philip, and I don't think anything else is coming through at this point. But I will put your contact details on the email that will go out with this presentation, so anyone can, or people can get in touch with you guys straight away.
All right, that's fantastic. Thank you for organising this, Gabrielle, and I'd like to thank Philip for his excellent presentation at the start.
Yeah, well, thank you guys both very much. It's probably quite early for you guys, so
that's right. I was going to thank also both Gabriel and Stephen and everybody on the call.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
We hope this video gave you the information you were after. If you have any further questions, get in touch with us using the links in the description.